Everybody from London. I will do my best to stick to our time limits, as I know everybody's time is valuable. So I'm going to kick off the session with a little bit of a request for the researchers' involvement and the reasons why I think this is important for your career as you go forward. As Ishwa mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of a platform called Figshare. We build repositories, and we did the NIH pilot a couple of years ago that was launched at this very conference. So what I'd like to start with, for those of you who are in the previous session, is the NIH data ecosystem thinks about covering all researchers and all of their data that they fund. So there's a general rule: if there is a subject-specific repository that you can make your data available in, then put it in that repository. There'll be a lot of help there. And for everything else, there's some generalist repositories. Figshare is one of them at figshare.com. But there's also Zenodo, there's Dryad, there's ISPCR. So you'll be hearing about a few of them. What we want to do is, what I want to do in my 10 minutes is talk a little bit about how this can benefit everything in your career, and how we can make sure that the repositories and the researchers work together. And so you can see in this slide already where some of the friction comes in, right? You might be familiar with this. The idea that we need more transparency. I think everyone labored the point of why this is important in research, but you can also say the thing about, well, I don't want to get scooped. I don't want people taking advantage of my data if I can't take advantage of theirs. And that's why we need policies such as the one coming from the NIH. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can maximize that impact. So we did a report, we do a report every year on the state of open data, and we query researchers to see what their thoughts are on open data, what the problems associated with it are. It's a new field for a lot of researchers, so we try and understand it a little bit better. And this is one of the key findings, I think, most recently, is should funders make the sharing of research data part of their requirements, and should funders withhold funding or penalize researchers who don't share their data? And what you can see here, this might be a shock to you, is that there is an overwhelming majority of researchers who are saying this should be happening and it should be enforced by the funders. So the NIH are doing the right thing here. The question is, why is this coming about? Why? It seems like an unusual response. Researchers are busy enough. Why should they have more work to do? And it's, well, if everybody does it at once, then you remove a lot of that competitive nature, whereby if everybody is making their data available, then nobody has to worry about their data getting scooped, in the same way that when you publish a paper, you don't worry about getting scooped because you have that credit for that paper that's come out. So to touch on some of the highlights on why this is a good thing to do, we now are starting to see more and more evidence that if you make the data associated with your publication available at the time of publishing the paper, then we see an increase in citations to the paper. So more impact for your research. And this is really important. As I say, there are lots of different types of outputs. In the earlier session, we saw really great tools from the NIH around big data and genomics data and ways to process that. But there's a huge diversity in the amount of research that you can publish. And so where generalist repositories focus is trying to do something with all of the outputs that don't have a place to live. And this can be tabular data, it can be videos, it can be all kinds of different research outputs. And this is how we try to handle it, with version control, with impact metrics, but also with previewing the files in the format that they were produced. So this is where I'm talking about it's a two-way street. The repositories have to build something that makes it very easy for researchers to use, but the researchers have to do their bit in making use of the tools as well. Because in the NIH data ecosystem that we're talking about here, there really is no excuse, or the tools that are being built will have no excuse of, there's nowhere for me to put my data. Every researcher who is NIH funded will have somewhere to put their data. as I mentioned before, subject-specific repositories where possible. And then if there's nowhere else for your data, you can make it available through generalist repositories like this. So what's interesting is in making data available in a way that is previewable in the browser, this allows you to publish your data in the format that you generated it. And this was very important for me back when I was a researcher, to make sure that if I did write a Jupyter notebook, I want the Jupyter notebook to be published. I don't want to convert it to a Word document and then publish that, as you lose a lot of the context, you lose a lot of the provenance of the research output that you're publishing. So there are great integrations with tools that you're using already. So one of the things I wanted to, again, this kind of two-way street, for repositories, encourage repositories to meet you where you are, make sure that you're working in a way where you can publish the data once and then it travels throughout an ecosystem. So if you add good metadata at the beginning, if you do your bit, then it should be really simple to make sure that these systems work together so that you can publish very easily. And so GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket integrations that we have is one of those ideas where we're trying to meet the researchers where they are, where they're doing their work. The other responsibility on our end is making sure that if you publish your data, it is available to everybody and it's very discoverable. So things like Google dataset search, you can see this result from the NIH pilot, making sure that that's available in all of the different indexing systems. That's a requirement of the repositories. This is the responsibility of the repositories. When it comes to what's in it for you, you can see here that we track citations, we track views, we track downloads. You can click through and see the papers that are citing your data sets. So we're trying to make sure that if you are having impact for all of your research outputs, you can see it, you can track it, you can put it on your bio sketches. Also things like altmetrics, which are tracking the impact of that digital object identifier around the internet, whether it's on Wikipedia or on blogs. This allows you to see where your research is being reused in ways outside of the traditional citation in a published peer-reviewed article. So that we can give you these metrics. This is the two-way workflow. And if we finish on what academic publishing looks like, this is where I'm saying the repositories can meet you. So if you have, there's some things that we take care of. We'll take care of the storage and identification. This is the publishing of a paper. What is the traditional publishing of a paper? What are the services that are provided, right? There's archiving, there's dissemination, there's certification. So you have, this can be applied to data too. The repositories will take care of the identification and the storage. And then this becomes a two-way street. Preparation, provide good metadata, and it becomes more findable. It becomes more reusable. I like the idea here that it's a new area for researchers, so making your data available and calling it data set is not going to make it discoverable. It's similar to imagine calling your paper paper. You wouldn't do that. So in your preparation, that is the researcher's responsibility in order to try and get that extra impact. In terms of the search, that is the repository's responsibility to make it available in as many places as possible. Google dataset search, all these other indexes, data sites, and then marketing, feedback, and stamping. Well, this all is a two-way street again. If you can help promote your research, if you can make it discoverable, then it's easier to disseminate, then it's easier for others to find, and it's easier for others to reuse. Link it from the paper that is associated with it, because even though it's not at the same scale of that massive data we heard about in the first section of talks today, what we're moving to is a world where not everything goes through the publication. The publication will still be the context. The publication will still be the king, but it is not the route in which you discover content in the web today. So providing this linked up approach from all of the different research outputs as individual scholarly outputs, including data sets, will allow more people to find your research, more people to build on top of it. And you as a researcher will have more impact in your career in the same way that you do with your papers as well. So that was short but sweet, but hopefully there's some questions at the end. And I look forward to hearing them once all of the other folks have talked through their slides as well.